Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored today to be here with Angie Weinberger, the founder and managing director of Global People Transitions. Angie, how are you?
I'm great, Ben. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. And where in the world are you? Because it's you're not here in the States here. Where are you, Angie?
So I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland,
Wow,
and I've
Switzerland.
been here 15 years now.
Fabulous. All the way out in Switzerland. I love it. I had a layover in the Zurich airport. That was the closest I've been to experiencing your wonderful country, but I hope to experience it vicariously through you. Get in the comments if you're watching us right now. Hit that like button. I want to know who you are. I want to know where you are, what you're up to. Give your company a shout out. We're going to be talking all about diverse talent. How do we serve them in the global mobility process, the hiring decisions that we make, and just how can we be more informed to take better care of our globally mobile employees. But Angie, before we get into all that, I want to know a little bit more about you, the person. How Tell me a little bit about yourself, Angie.
Okay. Well, I moved here about 15 years ago. And before that, I was basically working in different countries, always in human resources, and mostly with a focus on global mobility. And I love traveling and I love to be in other countries. I love to mix and mingle with people from other cultures. So obviously, global mobility was my dream job
Right.
when I entered it in the late 90s. And sort of I got sort of stuck in the field. Um, in a positive way. I also ventured out. I did some other things. I worked in outsourcing, so went to India to work in outsourcing for a few years, and then came back into global mobility. Worked for a big four consulting company for the internal mobility department.
Okay.
And they had a job for me in Zurich, Switzerland, and so I decided to move to Switzerland.
Wow. And now you've been in Zurich for 15 years. Is that
Mhm.
right? Is that what you said? Wonderful.
Yeah.
And we have another global mobility professional from Switzerland with us, Johanna Lindstrom.
Hi, Johanna.
Hi, Johanna. It's good to see you here checking in Basel. So, how far is Zurich from Basel?
Well, by train, it's only an hour, but we pretend that there's a border between the cantons and we behave as if it's a foreign country. So the Swiss people are very particular about their cities and their cantons. And what feels like a small distance in other countries can feel a lot further here because even the language is already a bit different in Basel.
Tell me about that because in Switzerland, you speak many languages,
Yeah, so I mean, we speak, or officially, we have four official languages,
four
but then
official languages.
yeah, and
A lot.
then there's English, and then there's the Swiss German has various dialects. So even the Zurich dialect sounds different than the Basel dialect. So even if it's only an hour apart, the dialects have different words. Yeah, they sound different, and that is there's a huge diversity in the country. Plus, we have about 25% foreigners, and that means people with a foreign passport, some of them second generation, but 25% of the population is quite a deal.
Wow.
So it is a very colorful country in many ways.
Well, I want to hear your thoughts on the country here. Johanna says, "Good thing that neither one of us are Swiss."
I'm I'm working on it.
You're working on becoming Swiss, yeah. Johanna, and Johanna, how long have you been in Switzerland? Because I think you moved the last few years. I think it was, yeah. So what are your thoughts on and we'll get into more of the notes about inclusion and providing that experience we want to provide, but I always like to look at kind of the micro experience too of the expat because you have that expat experience personally. And
Mhm.
so what are your thoughts on Switzerland from an expat standpoint? And what is it like to experience Switzerland maybe as an outsider?
Yeah, yeah. I think it is really important to understand that, there's Switzerland is has very good reputation because from a tourist perspective, it's a beautiful country. We have the mountains, we have the lakes, beautiful weather, it's safe, it's healthy, it's everything, it's rich. However, for expats moving to Switzerland and migrants moving into Switzerland, the first 1 or 2 years can feel kind of hard because the culture is a bit exclusive. It is a bit hard to enter the circle of trust here. And even though, I'm German, you would think I speak the language, it's not exactly the same. I'm still considered a foreigner because of the language and how I speak the language. So it's not even so easy for German people or Italian people to settle here. But once you're like through that 2 year fray, I always notice that people then really like it. And then after 5 years, they get even more settled. And then, they don't want to return anymore. They want to stay here. And I think that's just important to know. It might not be the easiest country in the beginning, but it gets better and better.
Why do you think I appreciate that? And why do you think it's so hard to to break through? Is it cultural? Is it the language and the nuances of the language? What is it? What is it
Yeah.
about Switzerland?
Yeah, I think it is largely cultural, and I think it has a lot to do with the way Switzerland developed. Because it started in 1291 as a circle of a few cantons that united against their enemies. And then, they expanded that circle to a bigger scope. Yeah. So the way Switzerland grew was by defending itself against the outsiders. And it still does the same now against the EU, for example. And it's a small country, but it starts a tax fight with the US. So it's always a bit in a fighting position against the outside forces. And I think that's why, in Switzerland, gaining the trust of the locals takes probably a bit longer than in other countries.
Got
And
it.
I think that's the main reason. And also, it's really hard to learn that dialect. Yeah. So to speak that dialect to perfection is quite hard.
So if you sound different, you're already kind of at a disadvantage. Yeah, we see that here in the States as well. Jillian checking in. Hi, Angie. Excited to tune in and learn from you. Thanks, Jillian. Awesome.
And it's a bit easier in the French part because the French is more similar, and also in the Italian part. Those languages are more similar to French and Italian. Yeah. So, and then there's another language that nobody actually speaks apart from these people, these 500,000 people in Switzerland. It's
These
called
people,
Romansh.
what is it called? Sorry,
Romansh.
Romansh.
Yeah, and it's more similar to Romanian languages. So I cannot understand it. It's very different from Italian or French or German.
So with four official languages, and I promise this, well, I think this is the last question about Switzerland itself. But with four official languages, how many do people actually speak? Are we taught as children in school to learn all four languages?
2 is the minimum.
Two is the minimum.
So most people speak French and German fluently, and some also speak Italian. And the Romance speakers always speak Italian and German as well. Um, so I think 2 is the minimum, 3 is the norm, and then obviously they also learn English in school. So most people speak 3, 4, 5 languages here.
Wow, incredible. Okay, let's get into the expat experience. What do you say?
Good idea.
So I want to ask you, we're talking to an audience of folks who love expats, right? I mean, that's our nature, that's our job, that's why we're here, right? But why do you think we need to focus more on the expat experience and maybe the hiring experience and less on, say, things like compliance that have been in vogue?
Yeah, I think, when we speak about in-house global mobility, especially, there has been a very strong focus on compliance topic. And compliance is important, yes. Tax is important, immigration is important. But I almost feel like these are sort of the hygiene factors of global mobility. So if something goes wrong in these spaces, we have a problem. But then there are the other things that make the expat experience a good experience or bad experience. For example, does the expat assignment fit into the career of the expat? Does it further their career? Do they have a good repatriation experience? So there's all those things that are related to the experience that I always feel like we should look into more. And especially the link between global mobility and talent management. That's something we have been talking about for 20 years, but I still feel like we haven't really bridged that gap. There's still a gap between those two silos. And if we put global mobility only in the compliance corner, we forget all the important other aspects of mobility, the care aspect of mobility, the career aspect of mobility. And there's also sometimes a cost aspect of mobility. So I think we have been stressing compliance a bit too much. And now we should focus a bit more on expat experience. And if we talk about international hires, which will be the case more and more, local to local transfers, the hiring experience. Yeah. Also hiring people internationally will become more the norm than the classical international assignment. So we need to also think about hiring experiences more.
I really like the points you bring up, and I want to unpack those a little bit. Anne Christelle is saying hygiene factors, good parallel. It's just compliance is good hygiene
Mhm.
within your global mobility program, but it's not excellence.
It's like housekeeping, you got to do it
You
because
got to do.
otherwise
You can't
it's
not do it.
missing. Yeah.
You can't not do it. It's what we say is table stakes, right? It's just
Mhm.
the cost of entry, right? It's not excellence. It's not the highest level and highest form of what we do. I think that's really important. I think that lately, though, and I'm going to maybe debate this point a little bit here with you, if you don't mind. Um, Lately, compliance, it seems, has been the only thing keeping global mobility relevant. We've had, business travel, compliance has become a even bigger topic recently. We've had some things that are critical to the business, that are legal issues, that are tax issues, and it seems to be those are the most pressing value propositions for global mobility. I see cost cutting and a lack of volume, and within the last, I'll say, year and a half, it feels like, in our space. And it feels like compliance might be the only thing that we're grabbing onto and holding onto and saying, but you got to do this, you know? And so I feel like I appreciate what you're saying as far as the experience goes. We want to aspire to having these excellent experiences, but right now it feels like we're striving just to hang on sometimes.
Well, the trouble is that we have a war for talent and we have a lack of talent in many, many countries and companies. And I think, the old tricks, they don't work anymore. If you want to hire the right talent, first of all, you need to also widen the talent pool. That's also, why I think we need to discuss diversity and inclusion more in the context of global mobility and recruiting and hiring. We need to widen the talent pool. So that's, I think, foremost important. But then also we need to adhere to the needs of those diverse talents better and make their experience better for them. And that includes them having a career. Yeah. So we're not just sending them on a development program. No, they also have a career, like a woman, female assignee. Yeah. she should be on a career path to go up to the board. But in order to make that possible, we first of all need to ensure that she actually gets on an assignment, that she gets the international exposure,
Sure.
that she's,
Definitely.
that we're looking at her in the selection process, and that we're not taking her out of the selection process because we're making an assumption that she can't be sent to another country because she has a family. So these are all the things, we need to look at. It's a whole chain, the value chain of hiring and global mobility, from the selection to repatriation, basically. There are a lot of points where I think we could improve the experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to talk about that a little bit as we talk about including everyone into the process. And shout out to Jack Jampel. Jack, I always appreciate the rare instance when you agree with me. Jack, it makes my heart sing with joy. Miss you, Jack. It's good to see you there. Hit that like button. Get into the comments here. I want to know. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. It's compounding. I love it. The affection and appreciation. Today's a day where I need those likes. I tell you what. You ever have a bad day, Angie, when you just feel like can I get a like? Can I get a little digital hug, please? Today's one of those days for me. Thank
And
you.
I'm sending you also a lot of positive vibes here.
I need the positive vibes. Thank you
My
so
couch.
much, Angie. This is great. Let's respond here. We got a couple comments coming in here, and I'd love to involve the audience. So get in the comments. I want to hear what your thoughts are before we get to Jack's comment, because it's a really good one. I just want to take a moment and recognize Pilar's comment here. Pilar says, "Hi, Angie. I had the pleasure of reading your book. I love it."
Great. Which one?
Take a moment real quick before we hop in. Tell us about your books real quick, Angie.
So, my latest book is called The Global Rockstar Album, 21 Verses to Find Your Tact as an Inclusive Leader. I have it here. But this
Oh,
is
I
the
love
one
it.
that
Can you put
only
it
came out
closer to the camera so I can just see the oh, I love it. You got the band.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And that's actually a book, where we talk a lot about inclusion, and we talk a lot about the female talent, the rainbow talent, and all the groups that need more support, in our opinion, than the classical white male expat.
It's okay. You can say it. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Say it. I'm okay. Forget about us, guys. We've had our time. We've had our
And
moment.
I assume, Pilar, you probably read the Global Mobility Workbook, which came out a few years ago, where I speak more about global mobility and processes and how we build up global mobility.
Where can people find your books, Angie, if they're interested in ordering
And
them?
they're all on Amazon. So
Okay.
it's just enter my name and you will find me.
Love it. Love it.
Also, this thing that the grandma uses to walk, that's also called Weinberger.
The walker is the Weinberger? I didn't know. Oh, that's funny. That is funny. I like that. Pilar says the Global Mobility Workbook, third
Yeah.
edition. She has the edition. Well, you got to have a first edition, Pilar. We need to get you a signed first edition, Pilar.
Unfortunately, that was only an ebook.
Oh, okay. No signed first editions. There you go. Adam, our super producer, Adam, could you put a link to the Amazon books in the LinkedIn, if you would, so that people can reference those? That'd be really cool. I want to ask you, we're going to dive into inclusion in the process and in the deciding process, hiring process. I want to get into that and see, get your thoughts on, are those things as pressing as they used to be, or do we still, face these biases? But before, I always want to prioritize the comments. So I'm going to ask you Jack's question here, or his comment. Remote work widens the talent pool. So you said we have a war for talent right now, Angie.
Mhm.
Jack saying remote work widens the talent pool, and this is impacting relocation and permanent transfers. Do you agree with Jack's statement? And what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for me, global mobility is not only about international assignments. It's basically anything that has to do with crossing a border as an employee. So remote work, international remote work, working from anywhere, workation, all these new buzzwords, I mean, yes, they will all contribute to more mobility. I think we also will integrate business travelers more and more into the global mobility realm, into the teams, into the function. And those transfers one-to-one from one country to another, local to local, that I mentioned already, they will contribute to more mobility. Plus, we have international hires. So we're hiring people from other countries, from, for example, from India into France, or from Mexico to the US. So also these one-way transfers and international hires will contribute to more mobility altogether. That is why I feel like our scope is expanding and has been expanding for the last 20 years. Global mobility professionals need to become a lot more open to work with all of these different groups. But then also we see more diversity in our population. So, for example, I mean, we still only have maximum 20% female assignees, just to give you a number.
Wow, is that right?
You were asking
20% female assignees?
max globally. Yeah. So, that is still not enough. I mean, if you hear the talk about you want to have whatever 30% of women on all boards across the world by 2030, that means we need to have a lot more women on assignments, because international assignments are usually one of the ways leaders are developed in the world. So it's still an important part of leadership development to ask people to go on an international assignment or run an international project. That's why I think, we need to start at the bottom, at the selection. We need to start opening the pool there.
So you're saying that we can't just say, "Oh, we want more women on boards," because now we are trying to correct for a symptom of really a much more downstream or upstream maybe issue that we have, that we're
Yeah.
not putting women into the pipeline to get these experience, to make them board ready, if you will, or to make them the absolute best candidates. So what is standing? So I got to ask, and we got a great question coming in here as well from Irene, but I'm going to keep this thread going here. What do we need to do to actually affect that change and to get more women on assignment?
So one idea would be to not only run international assignments on the basis of nominations, which is still the case in most countries and most companies. One idea would be to open international assignments through markets where people can just apply to any kind of international role or for running an international project. More transparency would really help diverse talent. So it would help women, it would help rainbow talent, because if they actively can apply, they will have a better chance to actually avoid the bias that is already in the process. Yeah. So that's just one idea. Then I'm also in favor of quota, because at the end of the day, I mean, diversity and inclusion did not make such progress in the last 25 years. So without quotas, we're not gonna get to all those goals that we have. We need numbers, and we need goals, and we need quotas to actually help with those numbers. So for example, you could say, in a country with a cultural minority, like Switzerland has a lot of cultural minorities, let's say second generation immigrants, they need to be 5% of any leadership development program. So if you are a second generation immigrant, you need to be a part of a population that would get affirmative action, for example. So I think these are the kind of things that will help. Otherwise, it's always going to be the old boys club.
So this is a really interesting concept. And when you say quotas, I can hear people out there saying, we really have to make this selection. We can't do quotas. We can't do things like affirmative action, because then we're not going to be merit based. We are going to be picking people based on their demographics. Why is that the wrong take to have?
Yeah, that's like the oldest That's the oldest argument in the book against diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, uh, One of the things I think is important that we understand, when I talk about these quotas and talent pools, obviously this would be more for junior developmental programs. There are very different types of assignments. If we talk about a senior position of a CFO in a country for a company, you probably only have one or two suitable candidates anyway. Yeah. So, but for those programs where, we're like, have these junior developmental talent type programs, that's what I'm talking about. There we need to expand the pool. And
Yeah.
then, you get the counter argument of reverse discrimination. But this is not true. This is not true. Because, the other 80%, for example, if we talk about 20% women, 80% are still men on assignment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think I think it's really interesting. So when we make this argument, or when the argument is made that we can't do quotas because we should be rewarding the best candidate for the job. Well, I think if we're honest with ourselves, the best candidate's not getting the job now. The person who is most like their boss is getting the job. The person
mm,
that went to university with the hiring manager gets the job. The person who, I mean, gosh, we look at demographics around CEOs, and even within male CEOs, taller men are more likely to be CEOs than shorter men. Right.
yeah.
So I mean, there's bias all over the place.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of research on this, these things that you just mentioned, the unconscious bias, the conscious bias. I think, the business case itself is clear, but we're not going to move forward unless we're actually measuring data and unless we're actually bringing in goals. Yeah, and these goals also have to be incentivized. For example, the CEO, has to be incentivized to follow diversity
How do we
goals.
incentivize CEOs? I'm a CEO. I want some incentives. How do I get
Oh,
incentivized? I want to
usually it
know.
usually it helps if it's bonus related.
Hey, somebody's
Money
working.
talks, Ben.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, financial incentives are the best ones. Um, yeah. I mean, oh, okay. All right. So, and then Anne weighs in here, and Christelle says, "Can't say the present system is purely 100% merit based either, can you?" Yes, exactly. Spot on. Yes, the
Yeah,
present system is not
yeah,
working the way it
yeah.
is
And
when we look at
I
right.
just read a research that for many leadership skills that are considered good leadership skills, women seem to qualify better, but that does not reflect in any of the promotion processes.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think we're all aware that there's still a lot of work to do in general. But speaking for global mobility, I mean, the thing where we can start the easiest are the more junior talent programs. And I think also global mobility managers can remind other HR colleagues that, there is not enough diversity. They can address the issue and they can also say, hey, have you looked at your overall population? Because right now I'm only seeing one woman and 20 men in this talent program.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. I like the point you're bringing up, because I think we missed the mark a little bit when we talk about diversity. We've talked about it in terms of hiring, and are we hiring a diverse mix of people? And we've talked about it a little bit in terms of inclusion, and do people feel comfortable bringing their whole self to work, and do they feel seen, and do they feel like they can really be, bring, be who they are really truly, and embrace that. But I like the equity piece. To me, is where
Mm.
this is going, and saying, does this person have a real chance to recognize their full potential at this firm? Do they have a seat at the table? Are they in the room where it happens? Are they chosen for the assignment, whether it be within the organization, like, where they are? Are they chosen for a global assignment? I mean, are they given the project, the key project? Are they, and I think that there seems to be I guess, what is the tool that's missing, or what am I not aware of how can we evaluate talent internally, maybe remove some biases and really start to find the best person? How does one go about finding the best person for the job inside the company?
I mean, the HR systems, they are in place. But if you would just look at the performance and potential data, that would probably already help. The thing that I'm worried about is that, for example, we're then still selecting rainbow talent and women out, or we maybe, we're not asking a person in a wheelchair to go on an international assignment just because we make the assumption that it's going to be too hard.
Mm,
And that is the problem. Now,
yeah.
if we use the data that we have, and then we apply the data and we use it fairly, we should actually come up with a fair distribution in the talent pool. And another thing, that is very typical when you want to foster, for example, a fairer approach, is that you demand a more diverse talent pool for any type of selection. For example, the CFO position I just mentioned. If you have 3 similar candidates and they all look like the last CFO, you have to ask for other people with
Yeah, we
other
see this.
yeah.
We see this all the time, Angie, because we do recruitment, right? And there's certain firms that hire a certain type of person. And we see it and we say, this type of company, this company right here, we could submit all the candidates we want along the,
Mhm.
look like this and are demographic like this, but they bite, they hire this type right here.
Mhm.
And all too often that type looks like the president of the company.
The mini me. Yeah.
The mini me. And you look at there's one company in particular that comes to my mind, and my team, if they're watching right now, probably knows exactly what I'm thinking about. And sometimes they'll post pictures on LinkedIn, and it's them at the boardroom or the board table. And they all have the same starched shirt on, and they're all the same white men sitting there. And you're just like, and as recruiters, our job is to make successful placements. And I struggle
Mhm.
sometimes with how much of our job is to make successful placements and how much of our job is to infuse diversity into this organization.
That's exactly why we have the discussion.
I struggle. I struggle with it because if my
Mhm.
customer isn't buying diversity, I'm over here. I could submit diverse candidates, but it's like I don't know that they're going to hire them. And is that my responsibility, Angie?
I mean, one of the things that will help in the future, and you have a different role as a provider, probably. At some stage, you also have to say, I need to earn an income, obviously. But what will help in the future is AI. We will get more fairness with artificial intelligence. So they will be better at selecting and digesting all the information that is there in the company. And if they're used in the selection process, that will certainly help.
I hope
Anyway,
you're right. I hope
that's
you're
not the
right.
only thing, we
Yeah.
can work on,
I hope
especially
you're
when we
right.
go, yeah.
I feel like there's a chance though that AI is even more biased than we are because we have a heart. Like so we might be like we realize we have unconscious bias and we sit down and we have conversations like this, unpack the bias, take steps to countermeasures to correct for it, right? And try to be good people because we know in our hearts this is the right thing to do. AI doesn't have that moral impetus. It just has the data. And if the data says, hey, this company just hires white men that are 55 to 60 years old, and that's who they want to hire, they might just feed them that input, right? Whereas like we're actually like, gosh, golly, I want to do better. Maybe we can have a conversation about maybe we can convince them, maybe we can dig a little deeper. I worry that AI is going to just cut right to it and just 10x our own biases that we sometimes end up programming into it, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure that was a topic as well. But
Yeah,
I'm quite hopeful because actually,
good.
there is not that the current systems that we had in HR, they were not that great at helping with talent selection. And that's why, a lot of the international assignments were relying on nominations.
I like this
And also,
nominations idea. I really
this
do.
whole, this whole idea about having a job market where everybody globally can apply to any type of international role, any type of project. I don't know that many companies actually do that. Yeah. So this is probably going to help more diverse talent if they can self-nominate for these jobs.
Yeah, I like the nomination idea. We got a comment here from Irene. Keep these comments coming. Hit that like button. Get involved in the conversation. I find this truly interesting. I'm loving the comments here. Uh, Irene saying, totally agree that the international hiring experience is critical. However, HR needs to reimagine other important touch points of the employee experience too. So international talent can really flourish.
Mhm.
You need to adjust the whole ecosystem for international talent. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Absolutely, Irene. I completely agree. I mean, we were just now talking about the beginning of the journey. I mean, we're talking selection, but there's a whole like expat experience journey. And if you really think about every single step along the way, it's a little bit like looking at user experience design. We need to think about expat experience design. Where are the touch points, for example, with our external vendors? Where are the touch points with our global mobility managers? Who else needs to be involved so that the expat actually understands, where they're going in their career? For example, after 2 years, end of assignment is nearing. What is my next role? Many expats, they don't have the support that they need to make that decision. Yeah. So there could be a lot more done along the way. Some basics include, for example, taking care of the spouse, taking care of family members, elderly family members, rethinking the whole idea of what the expat family actually is, because that comes from a very, like say, Western approach with a very nucleus family in most policies. Yeah. So
Right.
we need to also rethink the concept of family. What is it in that context, in the diverse context that we are in? What about pets? Yeah. Can we help people with their pets? Because maybe that's the most important thing to them, their doggy. So there's a lot of things, we could consider along the way, along the journey to make the experience better.
Yeah, and I think also in addition to the design of the experience, what about the suppliers that we use to provide the experience? Where
Totally.
is the supplier diversity and emphasis on that? Because I think it's really hard to offer a diverse experience or experience that caters to diverse populations and supports them in the various ways they need to be supported if we can't understand them, if we're not like them, if our companies as suppliers don't reflect the populations that we move, and so I want to just take a moment and ask you what are your thoughts about supplier diversity in the global mobility industry?
Yeah. It's actually the third point I wanted to raise today, next to, looking at job postings as well, because they can be discriminatory, and making them more inclusive. Then looking at the whole like policy part that I alluded to already. What parts of the policy need to be adapted so that we can be more inclusive and bring in more talents from different backgrounds. The third point is the vendor or supplier diversity. So basically, I think the vendors and suppliers should reflect the diversity that you want to have in your population. So, for example, if you're attempting to have 25% female expats or 25% rainbow talent, you should reflect that in your vendors. Now, obviously,
Right.
not every mover, is going to be a woman for reasons, but there are a lot of other vendors or suppliers where there's this opportunity to look at the diversity now.
Yeah, I would tend to I would agree. I mean, I would
One
agree as part
reason
of.
why you started your initiative, Ben, no?
Yeah, it certainly is. Thank you for that. I mean, it is though. It's when I looked around in 2020. Well, it started because I wanted to just help my friends, right? I wanted to help my friends improve their business, right, and increase
Mhm.
their business. And I realized that I knew a lot of people. I had a lot of relationships, my reach, relevancy, and relationships through this show, mostly uh, that could benefit them, right? And it wasn't competing with me, and they were friends of mine. And then I noticed that a lot of these friends I was helping were disadvantaged. They were minority owned companies or they were woman owned small businesses, and they were competing with really large companies, mega companies, companies that have been around for decades, right? And have very entrenched relationships. And I realized, like, wow, they don't have the same resources, and they don't have the same social capital necessarily. And all they needed was someone to connect them. All they needed
Yeah.
was someone to vouch for them and say, these folks are really good at what they do. They may not be the biggest, but they really care. They pour their heart and soul into what they do. It's purpose driven. And I can tell you they're really good at what they do. The quality is there. And it took off, and it meant so much to so many companies that they grew because of it. And it's something that then Jana continues to carry that torch for our company because it's so close to her heart and her purpose.
Mm.
Jana Chesanowski on our team, our director of consulting. So, yes, thank you for that. It is near and dear to our heart. And the work isn't done. I mean, we've been doing a lot of it, and we're continuing with this initiative this year, and it's hard because every company, well, not every company, most companies in this space especially, are open minded and they're receptive, but there seems to be a disconnect between what we say we want to do, what we feel is the right thing to do, and then what we actually end up doing and how we vote with our dollars. What are we actually saying with our
Mhm.
with our dollars, with our spend, with our actions?
And that is why it's so important that we continue to run these shows where we continue to remind everybody, like a broken record, of these topics. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do that, for example, also in my lectures, and in my talks. I just bring it up all the time because I just find it important.
So Jack's got a question, and I love Jack because Jack will he'll say something. He'll make a comment that makes me think. I don't always agree with him, but we will always be friends. And so we're going to go down this path with Jack for a moment because Jack's asking a question that a lot of people think, but they don't ask. So let's unpack this, right? So Jack gives an extreme example here. He says, Ben, regarding your concern, is it your responsibility to provide diverse candidates or the best? When your child is about to go in for heart surgery, are you okay with not the top surgeon? This is extreme example, but hiring managers usually want the best, so that is your challenge.
Can I already say, Jack, I'm sorry, but you're already saying the diverse candidate is not the best. And that's already the problem. There's already
I
the problem here.
I will okay, fair enough. I will take this a different way. I will say, Jack, the odds that I have the best heart surgery. I'm going to use a different example. I'm going to use a real world example. I'm going to use the example of when I had my Achilles tendon surgery. Now it's not my child's heart, so and I have two tendons, and I guess if I only had one leg, I could live. But I had the surgery on my Achilles, and I pretty certain that my surgeon wasn't the best. There can only be one the best, first of all. So the odds that we have the best surgeon is I mean, let's who are we kidding ourselves? So I'm almost certain I didn't have the best. He was good. He was good. He was really good. He was good enough. And he did the surgery. And yeah, I was comfortable with that. I didn't go through and actually look up who the best Achilles surgeon in Michigan or the world was before I did it. I just did it. Um, but I think the problem is, Jack, and this kind of goes to prove the point we made earlier, is this person probably wasn't the best. How did they get to medical school? Well, he was a white male. I don't know if that provided him any advantages in life or not, but he was, and um, and I don't know how many surgeons out there never got the opportunity to be a surgeon because the demand wasn't created or the quota wasn't created for them to get the opportunity. So yes, would I want the best heart surgeon for my child? Of course I would. But the best heart surgeon can't do all the surgeries. So we're not even just talking about the best. We're talking about creating, a pool of opportunity to attract people. I don't know, Jack. I mean, that's my thoughts on it. Angie, you feel free to comment as well.
I just think, when we talk about expats and expat experience, we don't always choose the best people. Very often we choose the candidate that is available and where we think they have the competency to run the role and to perform the role. But that doesn't mean that we have taken all potential candidates into account. And that's basically what I'm trying to say for the last 45 minutes,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
maybe the best candidate is still waiting at home because nobody ever asked them if they wanted to go on an international assignment. And
I
exactly what
yeah.
Anne-Christelle is saying, best candidate and diverse candidate is not mutually exclusive. That already has a negative, like that sentence already had an assumption that wasn't right. Yeah. That's not what we're
Yeah.
saying. We're not saying take the bad candidates. Take the good candidates, but take all of them into account before you make your decision.
And Jack knew he was walking into a hornet's nest here, and I respect the heck out of him for it. The other thing too is we're specifically talking about healthcare, which I know is not the topic of the day, but Jack used a healthcare analogy here. I mean, we look at the difference in care that minority populations receive, at least in the United States, and the way that pain management is handled, the way that folks are cared for, the outcomes in our healthcare system, at least here in the United States, based on different demographics. And it really does make a case that we need more diversity in healthcare. Jack says you are exactly right, Ann. I did not say the best candidate is not a diverse candidate. Okay. All right. So we've talked a lot about those issues, and I don't think we've solved them, but I think we've definitely raised people's awareness here.
Can
Angie,
I can I add something to
go
the
ahead,
healthcare topic? So
please.
not specifically to the US, but it's something I also read with the upcoming idea of having a workation. Yeah, so a lot of people now they can't work from anywhere because of compliance issues. So many companies have put a policy in place where they say, yeah, you can work 60 days a year from another country. And in those 60 days, if you live in another country, you're basically responsible for your own health care. So that is, for example, something where I feel like it would be such an easy policy change, a benefit where we would help the employee would be happy if we said, okay, if you want to take that workation in another country, we're going to make sure with an international insurance. Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of those up to
Yep.
60 days. And then you're going to be insured under that coverage. And this is a benefit we grant to all of our people, not only expats, everybody in the organization, because we're a great employer and we want people to go on vacation. Because if you are a migrant and if you live away from your parents and family and elderly, relatives, for example, you want to go home and work from home, I mean, to your home country for 60 days a year. And we want to support that. Would be a very easy way to be inclusive.
Yeah. Well, definitely enable the experience that they were trying to provide. Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Great point. Angie, I want to get into having a little fun here. You want to have some fun with
Yeah.
me, Angie? Okay, great.
I mean, it's hard for me, as Germans and fun.
I know, but I figure it's late. Maybe you've been into the gym already. I don't know. We'll see. Um, let's see here. Let's play a little overrated, underrated. It's a game we like to play at the towards the end of each show. I will provide you a topic, and you will
Uh-huh.
tell me if the topic is overrated or underrated.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's see how we do here. Okay. Um, let's go. Let's get into it. Valentine's Day, overrated or underrated? I have now be careful. I have strong opinions about
I would
this,
say it's overrated.
and you would be correct, Angie. You would be correct, at least on this show.
Am I
I get
getting a
to be the
point?
decider. Yes, you get a point. You get a huge point for that one. Why is it overrated, Angie?
Um, I think it's a bit hyped in many countries, and not so much fun if you're single or if you're not into it. Mm,
Yeah. I
yeah.
I think it might be more fun if you're single. 'Cause I'll tell you what, I'm married and it is not fun married either. So I don't know who it's fun for. Maybe it's fun for the fourth graders out there that exchange little candies and whatnot.
Arts. Yeah.
Esseret says overrated. There you go, Esseret. Way to chime in here. I love it. Hit that like button. Get in the comments. I want to know what you think. Valentine's Day is it overrated or underrated? Yana says, "Oh, agree. Overrated. Love has turned commercial." Yeah, Yana. Why do we gotta buy stuff, huh? Why can't we just I don't know, write a haiku or something? Anyway, all right. Next one. Overrated, underrated. The Interrail.
I think Interrail is underrated.
First, tell us what the Interrail is.
So in Europe, you can buy like a train ticket and you can travel long distances for several days or like a month, and it's really cool. Like even for older people like me, I had a very interesting experience in December where I booked an Interrail ticket and traveled through Germany, like the whole of Germany on a train. That was pretty cool.
How is it for kids? Like if I want to take my wife and two children to Europe this summer and ride the Interrail around.
I think it's fun. I think they love it. I mean, when I was a kid, we did everything by train, and I always loved to go on trains, especially the night trains, like to Italy. It's pretty cool. You should do it.
Nice. And you can sleep on there and everything, like the
Yeah,
sleeping cars. Oh,
you can.
nice. I think I should. I think I will. I'm going to take my family to Europe this summer. I just have to get my family passports. Isn't that terrible? Such a
Yeah,
you.
that is a task.
It's
But you're working club mobility, you should be able to get that done.
I should be able to.
I'm sure you have some immigration friends too.
I have immigration friends, yes, but they're very expensive. My immigration is a very expensive way to get a passport. Let's see here. All right, 2 points. All right, next topic. Oscar night. Ooh, let's see
I
here.
feel
You're gonna
it's
upset some
overrated.
people. Overrated, she
Yeah.
says. Why is it overrated?
I mean, it used to be fun like 20 years ago when big movies would win like 7, 8 Oscars, and there, we had really cool actresses like Meryl Streep. But now I feel like it's too commercial. I don't know.
So okay, let's unpack what you
And it's
said there now.
biased.
You
It's
used to
too
like
biased.
the big movies, and then now it's too commercial because the independent little films win that nobody watches.
It's too biased too,
Yeah, where's Titanic when you need it, right? Let's
Yeah.
see. I don't like Oscar night for other reasons. Esseret says overrated. Yes, you're probably correct. I think they're awarding a lot of movies that nobody wants to watch. And I think because they want to be artsy and they want to be. It's like let's save that for Cannes, okay? Let Cannes be. Is it Cannes or Cannes? I don't even know. Let them be the arbiter of the artsy movies, okay? Can we just stick to the ones we've actually seen, okay? For one, all right. Um, I like that when that happens. I like the stars, but I also think this is part of me just getting old and I'm not up on these new movies. I'm not watching all these new movies. I don't know who these people are. Like, give me a, it sounds terrible, but I say so. Like, give me a good George Clooney or something. Give me a Julia Roberts. Give me give me somebody else, a Meryl Streep. Give me a Meryl Streep, right? Give me a Dame Judy Dench or something, maybe, right? But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm just an old man. Whatever. You're right. 3 points. Okay, let's go. Number 4.
What else?
The Barbie movie. Ooh, now this is
Now I have to say,
controversial here. Yes. What do you think about this?
Barbie movie underrated. Should have won Oscars. More Oscars.
I don't know. Did it win any? I don't even know.
I think it got one, maybe. It was nominated, but it did not win the Oscars it deserved.
Yeah. I think this movie was way better than people gave it credit for. I think a lot of people dismissed this movie at face value when they heard about it and like, oh, Barbie. So it's like, you know, I think the men didn't take it seriously. I think that, you know, the reaction, I mean, your gut reaction from people who are probably more feminist minded probably was anti Barbie, right? But then it turned out to be all the things we didn't expect from it. And it was
Mhm.
all the things we needed. And
Yeah.
it brought it all together. It like I kind of brought all these different factions as I'm kind of describing them as siloed different and it brought it all kind of together in a neat way. I loved it. I thought it was great.
And the art, it was so artistic.
Very
And,
artistic.
all the dances and all the music. It was a work of art altogether. I mean, let alone the story, let alone the actors. I mean, it was a work of art.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, it was
think
great.
it should have received a bit more recognition from the Oscars.
We'll just have to start doing a movie award show and just give out our own awards. That's what I'll have to start doing. All right, Angie, you are 4 for 4 right now. Let's not screw it up. Number 5, dry gin without alcohol.
Totally overrated, and especially in Switzerland, totally overpriced too.
Tell
I
me about
rather
what is
drink
dry gin?
water. They're
It's like,
selling this thing, it looks like
what
it's
is it?
gin in a gin bottle, but it has no alcohols and it tastes like shit.
What is it? I mean, well, I mean, gin is an
It's
acquired
made of,
taste
I
too.
think it's made of potato or something, but the taste is really not great.
So,
Then,
do you drink a lot of non-alcoholic cocktails?
well, I was trying to follow dry January, and then I expanded it into dry February because of health, and
Sure,
it's good for me.
sure.
And then at some stage I tried this dry gin. Never again.
Never again.
Only made
Did,
this investment once.
did it make you crave the real thing?
Yeah, it was just not, it was just not worth it.
Adrian
Yeah,
says
yeah, right.
everything's
Everything in Switzerland is overpriced, but if you buy something pricey, then you want at least that it tastes.
yes, agreed. Well, I will take your word for it and give you a fifth point here on dry gin being overrated, and
Really?
without alcohol. Uh, great stuff there,
Am I gonna get
Angie.
some music now, or are we dancing? What's
Yeah,
gonna happen?
it's well,
Those
there
five
was
seconds.
no because there was no alcohol in the gin, so there will be no dancing. If there was alcohol in the gin, then perhaps we would dance. Angie, this has been great. I want to give you the opportunity to maybe leave us with kind of a final thought. I know we kind of rushed through some topics, but is there a final thought you want to leave us with, Angie?
Yeah, I really think we just need to continue to have those conversations and to remind business leaders, CEOs, remind them to really use data and quota and look at their talent pools, see which diversity groups are they actually adhering to, whom are they supporting in their leadership development, are they looking at the talents across the board, and yeah, and I think we could also spearhead the movement. I mean, as in global mobility, we should, as providers, show the same diversity, but also remind our clients, of the importance of looking at the detail here. And I think, we're used to that as providers. We're used um, to being supportive of individuals and looking at their individual needs. Maybe the HR professionals, the other HR professionals, they're not so used to that. So I also think we can really provide good extra value here by looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion more in global mobility.
I love that idea. I think it's a fantastic idea and a wonderful way to close the show. This has been wonderful. Thanks to everyone out there who has watched. hit that like button one more time for us. Appreciate you so much, Angie Weinberger, Managing Director of Global People Transitions. Thank you for being with us all the way from Zurich tonight. Thank you very much. And we will see you all next week, hopefully. Take care, y'all.